So in this lecture, we're gonna work on challenge number 2, but this time we're gonna actually solve it using an AI assistant, just so you can see how we could use the process that we just learned about in practice. So let's say that you're building a time tracking application built for freelancers. And at some point in building this application, you need a function that receives daily work hours for a certain week, and then it will return 5 data points. So the total hours worked, the average daily hours, the day with the most hours worked, the number of days, and finally, whether this current week was a full-time week, which means that the freelancer worked 35 hours or more. Now, you could actually try to solve this challenge also on your own before using the AI assistant, but the problem is that this actually needs some JavaScript features that we haven't learned about yet. But still, if you really want to challenge yourself, you can see how far you can take it with the skills that you have already learned up until this point. Even though these solutions would not be perfect. But again, it could be worth a try if you want this extra challenge. But in any case, the point of this lecture is to use an AI assistant and to use that 5-step process that we basically learned in the last lecture. And so remember how the first step is to really understand the problem that we are trying to solve using the AI assistant. Now in this case, we have already kind of understood the task because it was given to us here in this very comprehensible format. So pretty much we have everything worked down here, except maybe for some details, which we're going to work out in a minute when we write the prompt. So the next step is to then choose the AI assistant tool, and for that we're going to use the most popular one of all, which is ChatGPT. So let's head over to chatgpt.com, and I'm pretty sure that you have already used this tool in the past at this point. So this is by far the most popular AI tool out there. And so again, I'm sure you already have an account on chatgpt.com. But if you don't, then that's no problem at all. You can just create a free account and then come back here. So this is a pretty basic interface. You can just choose the model up here. And we're just going to use this GPT-4o, which is the best one at this moment. But again, if you're watching this in the future, I'm sure some better model has already come out. So they're releasing these new models here pretty fast. There's also this canvas mode here, which is actually great for writing code. But let's just stick to this more basic one where we can just chat back and forth with this assistant. And so then we can just type our very detailed prompt down here. And so to start, I'm just going to grab these instructions from here. And I'm going to paste them here. And then let's change this a little bit and make it more specific. So here, let's say I'm building a time tracking application for freelancers. Then here we don't need any of this fluff. So we want to be as direct and straightforward here in this prompt as possible. So we just tell the assistant, write a function called let's say analyze work week. And then let's say that receives daily work hours for a certain week and returns these 5 here. So let's think about this. How should this function actually receive the data? So I think it would make sense that it actually gets an array of the 7 values of the 7 days that are in a week. So let's say here that receives an array of daily work hours, and then it returns these. Now these should then also be in a data structure, so we could again return an array, but let's actually return an object here, which then makes it a bit easier to understand what each of the data points is all about. So and returns an object with the following data. So I think that this prompt here is very specific. So the AI will know exactly what it needs to do. And then let's also give it a bit more details on what to actually do here. So here these daily hours, let's say that they should round it. So round to 1 decimal place. Then here, let's say, in this case, that it should assume that Monday is the first day of the array. So assume Monday is day 0 in the array. And then here, as for the number of days where the freelancer actually worked, let's say that these are the days with over 0 hours, just to make sure with more than 0 hours. So looking here at our test data, again, we have this array, which is why we said here that this function should receive an array. And so, for example, here we have a 0 and here we have a 0, meaning that out of these 7 days, the freelancer has only worked 5 days. All right, so I think this looks pretty great. So just hit enter, and then ChatGPT will very quickly start working on our solution here. So it takes some time as it's working, and it's still way faster than we are. And then here at the end, it even gives us an explanation of what exactly it did. So let's check this code here. So the function has the name that we gave it. Then it's calculating the total hours. And here it's using this reduce method that we don't know about yet. Then the average hours, also using this function that we also don't know about yet. But for now, that's no problem. So this looks pretty good to me, even though, again, at this point, you don't really know this code yet, so you don't have any way of checking if it is actually correct. So I'll just go ahead and copy the code. And ChatGPT is even smart enough to know that this is code. And so it has this button here where we can just copy and paste that here. And yeah, let's even keep the comments here. We could also remove them, but yeah, let's keep this. Then here, it even generated some test data for us, but let's use the ones that we already have up here. So I will replace all of this. And then let's run our code. And I think it is still running here. So the live server that we set up earlier. And so indeed, here we have our object, just like we asked it to. So we get the average hours, the number of days worked, whether it is full time, then the max day and the total hours. So that's just shy of 35. And so that's why is full time is false. So let's maybe change the 4 here to 5. And so then this should be 35.5 and is full time should become true. So give that a save. And indeed, this worked really great. So just like this, we actually solved the challenge without having to type any code. Just keep in mind that if you were to incorporate this into your own application, you would have to really test this code and inspect if everything is correct. Also, remember that this is supposed to be an iterative process. And so let's try to maybe change something here. So this max day right here is number 4, which is basically the index of the day in which most work happened. So 0, because remember that in arrays, the first element is always the 0. So that's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that is indeed correct. This is the max day. So the day in which the freelancer worked the most. However, this number 4 here is not really a nice readable result. So instead, let's tell ChatGPT that this should actually be a weekday. So let's say change max day to be an actual work day like Monday. And so then it will get back to work. And so now here what's happening is that ChatGPT is creating this array here of these days of the week. And then here it will basically convert the index, like the number 4 that we got earlier, to the actual day name by reading that value here. So let's just copy this function here and replace the one that we already have. So just like this, give it a save. And now we should get Friday. Beautiful. So small tasks like this can easily be automated with AI, as you just saw. But it will always be your task to incorporate code like this into your own application. Again, making sure that it actually works and that there are no bugs in the code. So you'd have to do a lot more analysis and tests than we just did here. And actually, let's do one more test like this. So let me just copy this here again. Let's also remove this comment from here. And let's do weekly hours 2, analysis 2, and analysis 2 here. And now what I'm going to do is to remove 2 days from here. And in this case, we actually don't want this to work. So this analyze work week function should only work if there are actually 7 days given to the function. So if the length of this array here is 7. So let's tell ChatGPT this as well. The function should require the input array to have exactly 7 days. Update the function accordingly. So now it will probably introduce some kind of error here. Yeah. So in case that the length of this array is not 7, then we will get an error here in our browser. And even actually if this is not an array at all. So with this part right here. So let's copy this. Again, replacing our function here. Let's give it a try. Maybe manually reload here. We don't get the error. But that's because I forgot to actually use this array right here. And so now we get exactly that error. So input must be an array of exactly 7 daily work hours. So that's basically the error that is generated up here. And again, we never saw this code. So we had never learned about how to manually create errors. And we never saw this reduce method or this filter method and many of the things here in this function. But don't worry, of course, you will learn about all of this throughout this course. And by the end of it, you would be able to easily write this entire code here on your own. But remember how we also talked about in the last lecture that ChatGPT or any AI assistant is also great for learning. And so let's now use it for that as well. So let's say, for example, that we want to learn more about this filter method here. So let's just ask it that. What does the filter method do? Why is it useful? Give me a few examples. Here's a typo, and ChatGPT would even understand it with these typos, but let's make our text correct here. And so now, if you want, you can just read the explanation that you get here about the filter method. Now, here are still some words that we don't understand, or that we didn't talk about yet. I think, for example, callback. So this callback concept here seems to be essential for the filter method. And so we can drill down even further and ask it, what is a callback? Explain the filter method in simple terms to a JavaScript beginner. So that's basically what you are right now. And so if the explanation is a bit too complex, you can just ask it to make it more simple. And so then you get this explanation right here, which of course will look a little bit different for you because the output for each query in ChatGPT is always different for each time that you ask it. So even if I ask the exact same thing twice, the response will always be a little bit different. But you see, it is pretty detailed here and gives me all of this text, all this explanation. And so yeah, maybe one day it will even replace me as a teacher, which I hope it won't. But I guess until ChatGPT is able to create videos as I am, I should be safe. Okay. But anyway, this is it for this lecture. This was just a quick walkthrough and a quick demonstration of how we can use an AI tool in order to solve challenges like these. So as you go throughout the course, you can maybe also ask some questions in case anything that you did learn throughout the course was not 100% clear. And so then ChatGPT could help you with that. There's also now an AI assistant integrated right into Udemy, and so you could use that one as well while you're going through the course and something is not 100% clear. Just make sure to not use an AI assistant in order to solve the challenges of the course, because that would obviously be completely counterproductive. You wouldn't learn anything at all. So basically only use these tools after you have already finished the course and after you know exactly what you're doing. But that's exactly what we learned in the last lecture, and so let's not repeat all of that. So anyway, with this we finish up this section, and so let's now move on to the next one and really start learning JavaScript. So see you there very soon.